Okay, welcome back to week 3 of the Holistic Wellness Program. In the last session, we discussed how our blood type over the generations has influenced our immune reaction to the foods we eat, and how that reaction determines what foods are beneficial for our bodies and which ones aren't. How certain foods trigger our cells to produce antibodies, which agglutinate the blood, causing potential metabolic distress that, if left unchecked, could unnecessarily create numerous health disorders. So, in today's session, we will discuss the importance of consuming a proper diet that's in harmony with our immune system and enhances the immortal potential of the soul. A diet that possesses a high nutrient content, which provides the cells with all the energy and nourishment it needs, while simultaneously reducing the level of oxidative stress and inflammation within the body. A diet that promotes every expression of the cell while eliminating excessive conflict throughout the body. So, we're going to start by breaking down the distinction between a diet and a lipid, and how comprehending the difference between the two can literally mean life or death. Now, we're given the earliest insight into the preferred diet for mankind in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, where it states, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat." And that's the first chapter of Genesis, verse 29. So, in this passage, we are given two specific insights as to what mankind's diet was like in ancient times. First, we were given herbs or plants that produce seeds as nourishment for our bodies, which is an important point that we can't overlook. And second, the fruit or vegetation that's produced from trees that also bear seeds were meant to be our meat, or were supposed to be the source of nourishment for us. So the instruction given to us in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, that we are to eat plants that are in abundance all over the planet, that bear seeds or possess the ability to reproduce after its own kind, was meant to be the source of nourishment for our bodies. Now, consuming plants that produce seeds is a very important topic that we will discuss in more detail in future sessions. But right now, I want to touch on the idea of plants being recommended as our chief source of nourishment and the importance of that source of nourishment compared to the consumption of animal flesh as it pertains to the evolution of the nutritional needs for our species over the generations. So, like was stated in the last session, at a certain point, humans elevated on the planet from hunters and gatherers to a more sedentary lifestyle of farmers and animal domestication for agricultural purposes. At that point, we evolved from consuming animals as our chief source of nourishment to eating plants, and that switch was the precursor to the creation of civilizations. Since that time, the understanding for the necessity to consume more vegetation in order to meet the nutritional demands of our growing population was reached, and this insight gave way to the eternal wisdom of the Genesis account, that our bodies possess a supportive connection to the plants that are provided to us from the earth. So, for example, when we look on this chart provided by the website eatingourfuture.com, we see that we have more in common with our fellow frugivore and herbivore mammals than we do with our carnivore mammals. When we compare our phenotype and physiology, for example, the shape of our teeth is less pronounced and flat and has a minimal amount of canines compared to that of carnivore, which has massive canines for biting deep into flesh and ripping it apart. Our intestines, compared to that of a carnivore, are about 3 times longer for better absorption of nutrients from the foods we eat, whereas carnivores need a shorter intestine because the consumption of flesh as it processes through the body begins to rot, so it eliminates faster. The level of hydrochloric acid in our digestive tract, the acid needed to break down proteins in our foods, is weaker compared to carnivores, which is a lot stronger, and it allows for the proper breakdown of animal flesh. In contrast to us, because of the weaker stomach acid, when we consume animal flesh, it has more of an opportunity to enter into the colon and get stuck there and putrefy. Our intestinal tract requires us to consume lots of fiber to instigate peristalsis, which is the pushing motion created in the intestinal tract that allows us the ability to eliminate our fecal matter. Carnivores, on the other hand, possessing shorter intestinal tracts, have a shorter digestive time, so they do not require fiber to stimulate peristalsis. Lastly, carnivores possess a high level of uricase in the metabolism, which is an enzyme that's responsible for the oxidation of uric acid, a chemical compound that's found naturally in animals as a waste byproduct from the consumption of foods high in purines. High levels of uric acid in the body can lead to disease like kidney stones, diabetes, and gout. The production of uricase in humans is mostly inactive, so our bodies don't possess the capability of breaking down uric acid into a form that's non-threatening to our health. So our physiology at this stage in the game is designed to consume and process plants for proper nourishment and function, as opposed to animal flesh. Using the analogy is comparable to an automobile that's designed to use gasoline as its primary source of fuel. Now, you can put other fuel sources in a car like kerosene or propane gas, and it might run well for some time, but it will eventually lead to mechanical problems down the line. So, in a standard automobile, for optimal performance, we need to consume the proper fuel type that was designed for that specific vehicle in order to avoid problems. And our bodies, in comparison, need to consume vegetation as its primary fuel source for optimal performance and longevity. To provide proper context, we're given another insight into the relationship between plants and our bodies in the second chapter of Genesis, where it states, "And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." That's the second chapter of Genesis, verse 5 to 7. So, at this point in the story, mankind has been given the instruction to consume vegetation that bears seeds as their meat or primary nutrition source. And from the ground, the Creator caused a mist to occur that watered the earth, and man was formed from the dust of the earth, that same earth in which vegetation grew. Now, in the Hebrew language, the word used here for dust is afar, which can be translated as dirt or fine powder, but it can also translate as minerals. So the earth in which mankind was formed from and was breathed the breath of life into possesses minerals or the same basic elements that are also found in plants as well. After this breath of life was breathed into mankind, and we associated this breath in the first session with the form of intellect, the intelligence of the Creator caused mankind to possess the intellect to seek these same basic elements that are found in vegetation, which contributes to sustaining life perpetually. So for clarification, the word diet in the English language is literally the word die with a T at the end of it, and how that relates to the foods we eat subconsciously. That idea begins to determine an unconscious behavior of consuming foods that does not prioritize our health and nutrition first. In contrast, the word live it, which is the word live with a T at the end of it, connotates a level of awareness that prioritizes proper nutrition and health first, surrounding the choices we make as it pertains to the foods we decide to consume. So a plant-based conscious live it is really a nutrition plan that revolves around the idea of consuming the right foods that promote our body's life force to live in order to experience an existence of balance and well-being.